Let's talk about a war from the 19th century that literally redrew the map of South America. And the crazy part? This whole massive conflict was fought over a treasure hidden in one of the most barren, hostile places you can possibly imagine. This is the wild story of the War of the Pacific.
So, what was this amazing treasure? Was it gold? Diamonds? Nope, not even close. You're not going to believe this, but this war was sparked by bird droppings, which makes you ask, wait, seriously? A war for bird droppings? And the answer is absolutely, 100% yes.
You see, back in the 19th century, this stuff was literally called white gold. Guano, which is just fossilized seabird poop, was the most powerful fertilizer on the planet. It was absolutely essential for feeding the massive new populations of the Industrial Revolution. And the other resource, saltpeter, well, that wasn't just for fertilizer. It was a key ingredient for making gunpowder. So let's be super clear. Whoever controlled these deposits controlled a mind-boggling amount of wealth and military power.
So, where on earth could you find this incredible stuff? Well, the location is half the story.
Welcome to the Atacama Desert. We are talking about the driest nonpolar place on the entire planet. It's this enormous stretch of rock and sand where it basically never rains. It looks completely dead. But hiding right under the surface was this treasure trove of guano and saltpeter. It's this wild paradox, right? Immense riches sitting in a totally uninhabitable wasteland. Now, here's where the geopolitics get really messy. At the time, Bolivia owned that prime piece of coastline, the Antofagasta region, which was loaded with the stuff. Just to their north, Peru had its own nitrate-rich province, Tarapacá. But here's the twist. The land in Antofagasta was Bolivian, sure, but it was Chilean companies, using Chilean money and Chilean workers who were actually digging it all up and getting rich. You can just feel the tension building, right?
And that tension? It was a powder keg just waiting for a spark. And that spark was about to be lit.
And look how fast everything just falls apart. In 1874, Bolivia signs a treaty promising Chile, hey, we won't raise taxes on your companies for 25 years. But just 4 years later, a new Bolivian president is facing an economic crisis, and he just decides to ignore that treaty, slapping a new tax on the Chilean miners. The companies, of course, refuse to pay, so Bolivia threatens to just take their mines, while Chile's response is immediate. They send in the troops and occupy the main port, Antofagasta. Then things get even worse. Chile discovers that Peru and Bolivia had a secret defensive pact all along. Now Chile feels totally boxed in and declares war on both of them.
Now, you just can't fight a war in a desert without controlling your supply lines. And out here, the only highway is the Pacific Ocean. So this war wasn't going to start in the sand, it was going to start at sea.
And this naval war gave us two of South America's greatest military legends. For the Chileans, you have Captain Arturo Prat. His ship was an old wooden thing, completely outmatched by a Peruvian ironclad warship. But instead of surrendering, Prat leads a hopeless charge onto the enemy deck and is killed. His sacrifice became this incredible rallying cry that inspired thousands of Chileans to sign up for the army, and on the other side you had the Peruvian Admiral Miguel Grau. He commanded the powerful monitor the Huáscar and was known as the Gentleman of the Seas because he would actually rescue enemy sailors from the water. Just an incredible figure.
For 6 unbelievable months, Admiral Grau and his one ship, the Huáscar, were like a ghost. He terrorized Chilean supply lines and just danced around their entire navy. He single-handedly kept Chile from launching a full-scale land invasion.
But, of course, it couldn't last forever. In October of 1879, at the Battle of Angomos, the Chilean fleet finally trapped the Huáscar. Admiral Grau was killed in the battle, and his legendary ship was captured. With Grau gone, the sea now belonged to Chile. The path was wide open for the invasion to begin.
Okay, so with the sea now totally under Chilean control, the war moves from the ocean waves to the brutal, unforgiving sands of the desert.
And the Chilean army was disciplined and methodical. Their game plan was basically a step-by-step conquest. First, invade Peru's Tarapacá province to grab those valuable saltpeter fields. Next up, they smashed the combined Peruvian-Bolivian army at the Battle of Tacna. This victory was so total, it basically knocked Bolivia right out of the war. With Peru left to fight alone, Chile just kept pushing north, city by city, with the final prize being the capital itself, Lima.
The defense of the port city of Arica really says it all about the resistance. The Peruvian commander there, Colonel Francisco Bolognesi, was completely surrounded, totally outnumbered. The Chileans asked him to surrender, and he sent back this legendary reply: "I have sacred duties to fulfill, and I will fulfill them until I fire the last cartridge." He and almost all of his men fought to the death.
After more brutal fighting, the Chilean army marched into Lima in January 1881. I mean, can you imagine? For Peru, seeing the enemy flag flying over their capital was just a devastating blow. The occupation was rough, and the Chileans looted national treasures from museums and libraries, creating this deep, deep cultural wound that, honestly, still stings to this day.
But even with the capital gone, the war wasn't over, not by a long shot. High up in the Andes Mountains, a ferocious guerrilla resistance sprang up, led by a general nicknamed the Sorcerer of the Andes. This guy, Andrés Cáceres, was an absolute master of unconventional warfare. His men would do things like put their horseshoes on backwards to trick the Chilean trackers, or even put military hats on a herd of llamas to make their army look bigger from a distance. For 3 more exhausting years, they fought on.
In the end, though, even the mountain resistance was worn down and defeated, and all that was left to do was to sort out the consequences. Consequences that would leave permanent scars on an entire continent. And this really sums up the whole story. For the winner, Chile, it was a massive economic jackpot. Getting all that nitrate and copper-rich land turned the country into a regional superpower. For Peru, it was a national tragedy, economic ruin, and losing its wealthiest province. But for Bolivia, my gosh, for Bolivia, the result was a catastrophe. It lost its entire coastline, becoming a landlocked nation. This is a deep national wound that is still a central issue in Bolivian life and politics to this very day.
These massive changes were all made official with treaties. The Treaty of Ancon with Peru and a truce with Bolivia locked this new map into place, creating the borders that pretty much still exist in the region today. So, when you boil it all down, a fight over a desert full of bird poop and minerals completely remade 3 countries. It's just a stunning reminder of how the fight for natural resources can spark a war and shape the destiny of nations for centuries. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? When we look around today at the global scramble for things like lithium, or rare earth minerals, or even fresh water, what lessons does this old war fought in a barren desert still have to teach us?